Everyone, if you would please silence your cell phones. Yeah, the time is, sorry. And I may need to make sure that mine is off as well. All right. Well, everyone, welcome. And you're going to hear this a lot, but happy Thanksgiving to all of you. It is November 26th, Tuesday, our only Tuesday we've had. And it's 6:31. I call this meeting to order. First, what we're going to do an invocation, and then Troy, would you lead us in the pledges afterwards? All right. Thank you. So at this point, will you please stand and bow your heads with me? Dear Heavenly Father, as we approach this Thanksgiving season, that we are thankful for you, Lord, that you allowed us to live in this great city, that today we do your work, that we allow this constitution of our city to be developed, and that, Father, we are guided by your providence. Father, I ask that as we take time, that we cherish our families during these holidays, and we understand that all things are possible through you, and that we realize what our forefathers did, and that we can build a future for our city. I ask this in your name. Amen. Troy? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible. And God bless Texas. All right. This leads us to item number 3. And we are going to talk about the public comments. At this point, would anyone in the audience, as I see we have a great audience today, would anyone like to make public comments at this time? This is your opportunity, and we'll give you 3 to 5 minutes. But we are trying to get home tonight. Anyone? Anyone? Sir, for the record, will you please give your name and your address?
Button. Mark Hippett, 31 Fireside Drive, McLendon-Chisholm. I'll be brief. The success to America lies not in the brilliance of our politicians or our technocrats, but in the strength and vigor of our institutions. So I compliment you on the hard work you've done on developing an institution that will move us forward with the charter. However, stability in government is paramount, and as I reflect on the last 25 years of McLendon-Chisholm history, we are most successful when we have a mayor and a council who are committed to working together, and not where we have radical swings in opinions and action. So my primary concern in the charter draft is the election sequence. With 3-year terms, instead of electing 3 council members in 2 consecutive years, I believe it would promote greater stability if we elected 2 council members each year, with one of those years electing the mayor, and it would avoid, again, a radical swing that's going to force our elected officials to develop a better rhythm of working together, because they're going to be sitting together for an extended period of time. The other view I have as a mayor who occupies the highest elected position in a municipal government, and as a political head of the city, the mayor is expected to provide the leadership necessary to keep it moving forward in a proper direction. I would also like to see that tenor and tone included in the description of duties of the mayor. And I appreciate the hard work you've done to expand the definition of the way the mayor, the roles and responsibilities of the mayor and the council in this structure of government. But I think there is one additional step, because the mayor does hold a specific political head, right? That's, when you think about it in terms of Chamber of Commerce, for example, when they have a meeting, they're going to ask not 6 individual council members, they're going to ask the mayor to represent the views of the city. So I just think that would, explaining that would, adding a sentence would be helpful. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Anyone else who would like to approach? Yes, sir.
I wasn't really going to comment because it looks like you want to talk about chapters 10, 11,
No,
12,
you're good. Your name
13.
and where you live.
live in McLendon-Chisholm at 1419 Santa Lane. My name's David Black. It's funny, I had a lot of notes here, but I don't think this is the right place because you guys are just working on a few chapters. But one comment was exactly what Mark Kippett had brought up about the, you have a bye year, basically. You have 1, 2, and then 3 is a bye. I completely agree with him. It should have place 1 and 2 first year, 3 and 4 second year, 5, 6, and mayor third year. Just also, on that though, the terms. You've extended the time to 3 years, which is nice, a little nicer. And I think if you do this 2 each year, it'll make a much better mix for that 3 years to be fairly smooth. But the term limits, I'm thinking 3 term limits is a bit long in the tooth, because that would be like 9 years. You can have one person for 9 years. Now maybe he was unopposed, or there was no big issues, people didn't vote him much, but you know, the person gets elected and has another 3 years of sitting around. So I prefer 2 terms if you're going to go to the 3-year length of term. Also on votes, I was a little confused. There's no tie vote, I guess, in city council because the mayor will be voting just like city council members. So that's interesting. I'm wondering, are there like standard rules about what ties mean? It all depends on how you write the motion and all kinds of stuff, right? So I'd like an explanation of that someday. That's enough.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. Mr. Nickel?
Gary Nichols, 612 Kentwood. I didn't come prepared to say anything, but I just want to echo what the 2 previous gentlemen said. I support those suggestions. I think they're both sound and firmly based in common sense. In addition, though, I would like to see something stronger in terms of the mayor's duties and, I don't want to say power, but authority. The way I was reading the document, it sounds like he is primarily a figurehead, and I think the mayor should have a higher level of authority than just rubber stamping things and breaking ties. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. At this time, as we go, I want to make sure, but we do have today, I want to introduce, if you did not know, we do have Michael Hollow, who is our attorney, and he'll be guiding us through any questions and processes. And I will allow to kind of, I mean, I can answer, but I think since we have the attorney here, I think I'll let you explain what would happen if there was a case of a tie, the motion would die, correct? So that's why majority matters now. And that's why all votes matter. So that's what would happen in the matter of a tie, Mr. Black. All right. So, anyone else would like to speak? Anyone else? All right. Anyone else? At this time, we will go ahead and close the public comments, and thank you all for speaking today. We are now going to go into Home Rule Charter updated draft. And I'm going to allow Mr. Brewer to kind of talk about, there might be a panic on one item, but it will be addressed. And so, Mr. Brewer, you may proceed.
Yes, so when I was putting in the changes that were voted upon the last meeting, one of the things we were talking about was municipal court. And there was, we were mimicking what was in the Heath charter. Under 6.04, when I transferred it over, it all became one big paragraph, and so I separated those out. And then the other thing was I had missed copying in 6.05, which is cost, fines, and penalties. So I've added that in there. It's in the working copy. And then also I updated the table of contents to reflect those changes.
Mr. Holla, also, I think with this, in case we do want to revisit anything, is it appropriate that we can go under the updated draft to revisit that, since we haven't voted through the minutes? Is it okay to revisit what we've already done through number 4? Can we revisit that and table it for now and then revisit it? Do that. Okay. So the agenda, that's only my concern, is we have it as agenda points.
Yeah, as long as it's on the agenda, then I think you're good.
All right. So as long as we have home rule charter updated draft, we're good. All right. So what I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to set aside section 4 for now so we can revisit it. And then I'm going to go to number 5, discussion and approval of chapters individually for inclusion in the home rule charter. Do it. We're going to go to 5.1. Chapter 10 ordinances. And for the audience that we have today, you're going to see a couple things that I think I want to review. And Mr. Reich, just so you know, the process and voting. Today you'll have 3 cards in front of you today. There's a yellow card. That is your request to speak. I see that. That gives me an idea that I know you need to speak on the issue. I want everyone to have that opportunity. So, secondarily, you'll have a red card and a green card. The green card is your affirmative vote. That means that is your yay card, and you vote in affirmative. If you're against it, you vote with the red card. This is so I know where we're at, and so I can have the secretary vote. Since there's so many of us, yes, I know it's antiquated. I know it's short of building the wheel. I understand. But it is a process to help us know where we're at. So, and it also kind of eliminates so I know where we stand on the issue versus just raising hands and people leave their hands a little lingering longer and I don't know. So this is just a better process. And the vote would happen all at once and what we have been doing. So with that being said, we now move to 5.1, Chapter 10 ordinances. Do I have a motion on this subject? Tony?
That we accept it the way it's written.
All right, we have a motion to accept this written. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second by Dennis London, Vice Chair. Any discussion on this matter? Any discussion on this matter? Any discussion on this matter? I call for your vote. Seeing it's unanimous, Ms. Hudrup. We move on to 5.2, Chapter 11, elections. Do I have a motion? All right, we have a motion by Jody Wright. Okay, and reminder, yellow, not green. Thank you.
No, I was just gonna say.
Are you going to talk?
No, I was going ahead to vote already, I'm sorry.
All right. Do I have a second? Mr. London, Vice Chair.
I moved to second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. A motion by Jody Wright and a second by Dennis London. Discussion.
Can I add just one suggestion?
Oh,
At some point in there, I may have just missed it. I know it's gonna sound almost axiomatic that we would know this, but always err on the side of caution. I would suggest adding just one sentence anywhere you want for the elections, because it doesn't say any regular or special municipal election, the candidate in each place on the ballot that has received the greatest number of votes cast in such election for such place shall be declared elected. I didn't see basically it says, hey, the person who gets the most votes wins. I didn't see that anywhere, just so there's no,
okay.
I may have missed it, but that was.
All right. So, again, that is a discussion and it was input from our attorney. Any discussion on that? I'll allow Mr. Wright. Okay. So do we have a motion to amend? Do you make a motion to amend? All right.
I second
Chairman?
that motion for the amendment.
All right, Vice Chairman makes a second. All right. So now we're discussing the amendment. Any discussion on the amendment? Mr. London.
The only question that I have is, I know that Mr. Hollis said we could place it pretty much anywhere in here. Is there a particular area that you would from your experience, prefer to see it listed within here?
To me, this is one of those things, as long as it's in there, we're good. As long as somewhere in the charter it says, oh, by the way, the person who gets most votes wins.
All right.
Canvassing election
I think it
results.
says city 1101.
Well, how about 11.06 under canvassing and election results?
That's fine. Do you accept that friendly amendment, Mr. Wright? Yes. All right. So we have a friendly amendment. And so at this point, any other discussion on this amendment? Any other discussion on this amendment? Any other discussion on this amendment? All right, I call for your vote. Passes unanimously. We go back to the original as amended now, and any other discussion on this section, on section chapter 11? Mr. London?
I move to adopt as amended.
Oh, well, we already have the motion at this point, so that would be unnecessary. All right. All right. Any other discussion? I call for your vote. Motion passes unanimously. Go to chapter 5.3, or section 5.3, chapter 12, initiative, referendum, and recall. Do I have a motion? Leslie?
I'll move we adopt as written.
We have a motion to accept as adopted. Do we have a second? I saw Vice Chair first.
I second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. At this point, discussion. And Mr. Dean.
So in 12,
Microphone. You had to be different, right?
Can you hear me now?
I can.
In 1201,
Yes.
it talks about 30% of the number of voters in the last regular city election, which is, I think, what we decided on. In 1202, it talks about 30% of the number of voters in the city.
Okay.
And I'm saying,
Did I catch it? That might have been an error, and we thought we'll correct it the way it was supposed to be. I thought we corrected it. It wasn't. I think that was an error on accident. Is that right, Mr. Brewer? If I remember correctly.
1202 talks about 30% number of voters in the city at the time of the last election, instead of 1201, which calls out 30% of the number of voters in the last regular city, number of voters in the last city election. So it's
The city. Yeah, I think what we said the city. Is that correct?
in the city, yeah.
Yep.
Not the last election.
So I think that was an error on 30%. I think that was just an omission. That was a typo when we were correcting it. And I think when you're writing a big document like that, it happens. I don't mean it. It was not intended to be that way. So I think that's just a clerical fix.
Is that a friendly? What do
I
you
think
call
we can just make a note,
Friendly
Mr. Brewer.
typo.
We'll correct it. Mr. Holla, that would be because it's clerical. Yeah.
So the clarification, the 12.02, it should be duplicated from 12.01.
Correct. I believe that's correct, right? Ms. Brewer, we did say city. Yes. So it would, please, yes, of the last election. Any questions on that? Okay. Anyone else, anything else at this time? Ms. Wright?
I would like to discuss section 12.11, limitations on recall. Would love to have conversation. I know we talked about this initially. Lots of discussion. Knowing kind of how council meetings have been and just where we're at, I do think it bears more discussion. This states that no recall petition shall be filed against mayor or any other council member within 3 months after they first take office. And I think when you have much to what Mark Kippitt spoke about earlier, and appreciated his comments of there has to be a unity within this council of making decisions that are for the betterment of the city. And when you have strife, that creates that conflict. And how can we help support our council move forward. So would love to pose that for table discussion.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Wright. Anyone else like to discuss this matter at this time? Anyone else?
Do you have a specific proposal you're wanting to, like?
Ms. Rudworth, unfortunately, I have Powers first, and then, all right, just 1 second. Okay. Ms. Hildreth, you may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Powers, sorry. I was gonna ask if there was any specific wording that you're wanting us to consider.
I would consider within 30 days. That would be my proposal, not wait 3 months. But I understand some people think that's too short. I get it. That's why I'm asking for table discussion.
Yeah.
And so that would be a thought for the group to consider.
Mr. Powers.
Yes, I think that, I was noticing that myself. I do believe that the last period there, 6 months before the end of their term, is excessive. If there's a problem, that's an awfully long time to wait to address it. I am in agreement with, especially if under normal circumstances, the council is going to be meeting twice a month. So to give somebody time to get their legs under them and get used to working with everybody, I don't see 3 months as a problem there. And certainly if an attempt has already been made to recall somebody, there has to be another 3 months that go by before you try to do it again. I believe that's what that says there as well. I could be wrong, but I do support changing the 6 months to 3 on the end.
All right. And I'll take this moment to say the issue, I think, when I looked at this about the 3 months, the reason why that's very key and important, in my opinion, why it is where it's at, is that that's when a budget, and passing a budget is the most critical point. Not having that timing, having that instability there can delay a budget being passed. And so I think it's critical that we pass the budget, protect that budget process, because you get elected in May, and then you have till September 30th to basically pass your budget. So you're putting that clock on there. So I think getting that budget passed, that is a critical time you need focus. So that's why I think it's important to have that 3 months and not shorter. But that's why I think it's critical. Ms. Wright, you're good.
So I understand that, that perspective. I think when you experience councils that are at such disconnect and they're not working collaboratively, they're not working together with a shared interest of doing what's best for the city, extending it for whatever reason, I'm not sure how that has a positive impact to any citizens, much less council members that have been elected. So again, it's just, I felt bared additional discussion.
Ms. Hildreth.
Okay, I've not been on city council, I know some of you have, so y'all might be able to answer this. Can they not vote on budget if there's an interim spot, or if it's,
Well, if you have to fill it, there's potentials of delays in that unrest at that time. I think it creates an instability, and you can have issues with getting a budget passed. And I think that's my concern there. I saw London first, and then Bev, and then Jody. I'll go back to you.
So my question and concern is, this is most likely because of what we've seen lately being brought up, correct? So you don't have to answer. No? Okay. Because this is not a normal situation with most city councils. It's just something that either I haven't seen or I'm not aware of as being a normal occurrence and this much disconnect. So that's the only thing that I keep it with the 3 month.
Commissioner Russo, I need you to explain something to me with math. If the council person is elected in May, they technically would take place, they take office the 1st of June.
Right.
30 days before they could be recalled would be July.
Right.
Which, yes, is right as budget is being worked on. 90 days is September when it needs to be voted on. So what's the difference?
I think that interruption at that time when it needs to be voted, my concern directly is that could interfere with that vote, and it could cause that budget not to be passed. I don't think anyone currently would do that, but here's a scenario that I would like to give you as an example. Someone could easily see that if there was a complete recall of, let's say, 3 people, and they walk away you could not pass a budget. And it's, I mean, there's a possibility they could still resign during that time, so I can get that argument too. But I think it's important, as Mr. Kippett said, that during that period, I think there is a period where we need that stability. And I think that period is very key. And I think when we talk about importance of stability in that period in the beginning, I think is critical. So I really think that 3 months is a critical point.
But in the case of new council people that have never sat there before, and I know exactly what Jody is talking about. You get somebody in there brand new that's going to come in and it's going to be my way or the highway. 90 days is sometimes too late. 30 might be too short. 90 might be a little too long, because using the budget process as the reason, they could put the whole budget together. And technically, they don't have to wait till September 30th to pass it. It can be passed on in August if they get it all, their act together and get
Correct.
it done.
You are correct.
And then they've done something on the budget that would make somebody want to force a recall, and the budget's done.
I think that from my perspective too, is thinking that we're going to have always the worst outcome and always, I don't think threatening and having a button and stability and giving someone, a brand new council member, to learn their way, giving 90 days is prudent and I think acceptable. But again, it's your choice as a group, and I don't mind that. But I really think that 6 months. So, Ms. Wright.
I wanted to respond to
And Ms. Barsha next.
Commissioner London. So I've lived here 8 years. In my very short time, comparatively to a lot of McLendon-Chisholm citizens, I have watched 3 horrific councils. And when I say horrific, I mean destructive. And I have watched them rip away power from mayors. I have seen games played that are indescribable from council members. I'm watching it again. And it's devastating to me to have played a little bit more active role in the city than I was when I first moved here, and swore after watching 2 of those, and this is 3 different mayors now, that never, ever, ever would I sit by idly if I had an opportunity to make a difference in how that played out. So that's my part, and recognize this is a group that has to come to a consensus, but it comes from a very emotional part of watching our city be at essential standstills multiple times because of this, I want to say hatred. I don't even know the better word, but just this disconnect that happens between people that have their own agenda, and there's no unity whatsoever in looking at what the citizens are requesting 3 times now. One is current, to Commissioner London's point. So yes, that is why this is a little bit more resonating with me right now. We're living it as we speak, but it's not the first time. It is now the 3rd time in 8 years. So it's not uncommon for this particular city that I've witnessed.
Mr. Powers.
Yeah, just as before, I definitely appreciate everything you're saying and your thoughts behind it. I believe we need to look at this in light of what is supposed to happen and what probably will happen. And I do believe that it only takes 30% of the voters from the previous election to put together a petition for a recall, correct? Or 300, which that's a small portion of the populace. So you could have a disgruntled candidate that lost, gather 300 people and remove somebody that was just duly elected by the citizens 1 month into their service, and maybe at really no fault of their own, maybe somebody you do support. So I think in looking at things the way they probably will happen, what would normally happen, the same opportunity that I would want to have if I were serving on a council. I think 90 days, 6 council meetings is a good opportunity to see, and if somebody's going sideways, it gives, other than a recall, other methods to straighten things out. Give people the time they need to correct their course. If somebody's behaving extraordinarily horribly, there are other measures that can certainly be taken and pressure that can be brought to bear. So I'm with 30 days in all respects.
Roberta?
Yes, I had wrote this up weeks ago, and I thought I just told it out one more time. I feel more comfortable for where it says 3 months to have 60 days, and where it says 6 months, we have 3 months. I thought I just put it out one more time.
So what is it that you're
So you
specifically
know where
saying?
we have 3 months, change it to 60 days, and where we have 6 months, change it to 3 months. I had mentioned it before, I know I was voted down, but I'm gonna give it one more shot.
Okay, are you making a motion?
Yes,
All right, we have a motion to amend, and restate your motion, please.
where we have right now 3 months, change it to 60 days. Where we have 6 months, change it to 3 months. That's my motion.
Okay. So we have a motion. Do we have a second? Do we have a second? Do we have a second? The amendment dies.
Okay.
All right. I had Jen Haldworth, I noticed first, and then Ms. Powers will go back to you. Ms. Haldworth, you had your hand raised.
I've had my heartstrings pulled on this very specific item because I very much relate to what Jody's saying. I've been here a year longer than you have, and I've watched it. It's been shocking. And I just want to put it out there that how things are supposed to go is how we should do the charter. However, that is not the experiences of probably 50% of the residents. So we have to take that into consideration. So I get what you're saying.
Well, and here's the thing I was saying, then Mr. Powers. The other part is the difference here is we do have a document and a stringent, and that's why one thing with the charter, we haven't had that to that point. There's been things, but with the ethics and the things that we're including in here, I know we did have an ethics policy in the past, but the robust, direct, clear, there's a lot of things that in the past that have been said, you can't do that. It wasn't in writing. It was inferred and it was implied, but there's nothing in writing. And what we have done, ladies and gentlemen, is we have put it in writing in a codified document that the people will get to vote and decide. And the other thing is what we are presenting everyone is something that the people will vote for and what they will decide for. So what we're making a decision is what our citizens want and what they're going to vote on. So it's not just us, it's what our citizens want. So I hear it, but I think that what we have written, I mean, I understand, but Mr. Powers, you had your...
Yes, I'd like to propose that we, as far as section 1211 goes, that we change in the last line 6 months to 3 months, but otherwise leave it as is.
Okay, so we have a motion to change from 6 months to 3 months on the end. Do I have a second?
I second.
All right, Roberta seconds. We have a motion and a second. We are now in discussion on the amendment.
Can I ask one clarifying question?
It has to be on the amendment. Okay.
Kind of, my question, you can tell me if I can't.
Okay.
My question is, Mr. Powers stated that there's other ways that it can be dealt with if things are out of control.
Okay.
This is about the amendment because we are talking about.
Yeah, you're good. Proceed.
So I want to know what those other avenues he's referencing are.
Okay. So, Holla, do you want to take that, or do you want me to take us? So, Mr. Powers, I think is talking about Here's what I would say is that we do have the ethics and the rules that we have. There is an outline, there are things that they can do, and in the ethics and the policy rules, it does give some provisions for them that they can do. An additional removal of powers. There are other things that can happen during a meeting in the course of state law. So there are other ethics and state law ethics that can happen provisionally that trump our charter that can happen by state law.
I mean, it depends on what those things are. Do you have
Right.
a little more specific that you're thinking about? Can you give a little more specific example?
I don't want to do that on the record.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
All right. Well, what I would say, if you don't mind, if we get to a break or any other questions, if you feel comfortable when we're at a break, you can talk to Mr. Holla, and because we're still going to be going into a public forum. So any concerns that you have can be brought up at public forum. You can discuss it and talk to Mr. Holla offline if that's what you would like.
If we're playing off on a little bit about what Jody was saying. If you're talking about bad actors acting badly, the home rule charter, and it wouldn't be in this section. So, I mean, I want to keep it on this, on what we're talking about, but I also want to answer your question because I think it's a good question. So there is a section you can add in your charter, and it's called censure. That's what it's regarding, censure. General law cities don't have the authority to really censure of any legitimacy. I mean, you can slap somebody in the wrist, say, no, you're a bad person, you violated our ethics. But that's really about all you can do. You can't take away the vote. Now, the reason it's different, y'all will probably get this, but the reason it's a little different when you have a charter, well, back up just very briefly. The reason that's not okay and you can't do anything about it with the general city is you can't have these elected officials changing what the voters did. Y'all are probably aware that's one of the single most sacrosanct rights that we have in this country, the right to vote. No matter how bad your vote is, you have the right to make it. That's where we are. The difference in the charter is because the censure, and there's usually a policy, and it's almost like a quasi-court type deal. Somebody makes an accusation against somebody on council. There's an ethics policy, an ethics code. You go look at that, then it's kind of brought before the whole council, and they make a decision whether or not there's been a violation or not. Whether that council member can actually be removed, that's going to be what's in the charter. The reason that that's okay, note the air quotes, but the reason that's okay, if that's the procedure set out in the charter, is because the voters elected that to be the policy. The voters gave the city council the authority to do what they're doing in terms of somebody bringing charges, if you will, air quotes, bringing charges. Then you have the process. There's an investigation. At the conclusion of the investigation, people bring evidence, and it's all presented to the city council, the court, if you will. Then they make a decision, and they can assess only the punishment that the people have voted to be allowed, as, let's say there's a finding that some ethical rule was violated. Then, and only then, can they elect, hey, these are the three punishments that are laid out in charter. We assign A, B, or C.
And to be clear, censure would not be appropriate movement at this time in this section of, when we review, we can talk about it, but it would not be appropriate for initiative, referendum, and recall.
I was trying to be sensitive to that. That's why I said it's not really this section.
I want to be clarified. I want you to be able to facilitate that, and because we do have the attorney, but that would not be a proper section at this time. All right? Now, we can review that at a later date, or at a later moment.
For sure.
All right, Mr. Powers.
Would you still like me to answer your question? You would? Okay. So again, we're talking about a 3-month period of time here, 6 council meetings, maybe 7. And the other pressures that can be brought to bear, censure for one thing, if somebody's breaking the law. I mean, we don't recall somebody because we don't like them or because their politics or their view of how the city ought, the direction the city ought to go in. We don't recall them because of those things. They have to be coloring outside the lines legally or ethically. And certainly if somebody's doing neither of those things, through our good citizens that would come to the meeting, come to meetings and put pressure on the council that way, the council person or persons to attempt to alter their behavior. But again, we're only talking about a 3-month period of time that we're given in that. And after that, you can do one the very next day.
Okay. All right. So, Mr. Wright.
Do we need to be more specific then as to what causes for recall?
Mr. Holla?
You can. That's a legitimate question, but that's also going to be up to. My concern from a legal standpoint, it's more along the lines of when you're setting up your referendum, recall, however you're going to set up the process, do you have everything covered? Let me give you a great example. About 7-ish years ago, it's a home rule city. There was a large contingent, and this is a very big city, probably about 50,000, 60,000 people, large contingent of voters did not like a particular ordinance that was passed, okay? The council, y'all mentioned this, well, okay, it's not unique to us, let me just tell you that. The council wanted to go forward, so the city attorney at the time, I didn't agree with how they handled it, and so the citizens came to me, and the city attorney just did what the council wanted him to do. And what I mean by that is, they would submit a petition for a referendum on the ordinance. All he would do is look at it and say, hey, it doesn't meet the form required by the charter. And that's it. And he would, quote, refer them to the charter, okay? Now granted, and I gotta stick up for him just a little bit here, although I think, my personal opinion, deplorable. I wouldn't have handled it that way. He cared more about the keeping his client than he did about doing the right thing, okay? If God's gonna have me lose a client, I'd rather lose a client, but serve him properly. I don't think that happened here, but he does answer to the council. So I get kind of where he's going from there. So what do we learn from that? In our charter, what do we require, for example, a referendum petition? We got 30%, 300 people, but what does that petition look like? Like, one I found, just a great example, it's signed by everybody. Then there's an affidavit by one person that's a qualified voter. That person in the affidavit says, because what do? Well, what about somebody says, hey, they forged my signature? I know that never happens in this world today, but what if, hypothetically, it did happen?
Or AI.
Well, yeah, that's a fair point. So what do? Well, we got one person who's a qualified voter, and it doesn't matter if you've got 300 voters or all 6,561 people in the city that are qualified voters. On that petition, that person submits an affidavit saying to their knowledge, all these signatures are true and correct. Now, so you ask about accountability. If I'm signing that affidavit, I'm going to be like, okay, wait a second. I saw all these signatures get signed. So there's somebody to be held accountable. And again, the city secretary, you do not want to put your city secretary in a position of making anything other than form decisions. You do not want to put your city secretary in the position of like, does this person really live where they said they lived here? You don't want to have to do investigation. No. Is the form filled out right? It's all in 143, for example, of the election code. It's a great analogy. Is the form right? Did they fill out the application, the occupation, the address, all these things, how long they lived here? Did they fill out the forms correctly? That's all you want your city secretary doing. Same thing here. You don't want the city secretary, hey, does it have the affidavit? Yes. Does it have, granted, the city secretary, he or she may need to count, okay, but you want to make sure they have the 30% or the 300 voters, and they count them all out, making sure all are, and then the form is there. And then you have one time, okay, look, you only got 286 signatures, not 300. Everything else is fine. Here's your notice. You got 10 days to remedy that. You go out, get 14 more signatures, and you bring it back. So there are some of your checks and balances, and you've also got someone to hold accountable. So the real, boil it all down to this. You want to make sure that the form of whatever you're asking for, recall, referendum, whatever, is laid out. And you've got it in there. And like this one says, you can do a proposed ordinance, make it look just like our ordinances with the warehouses, the recitals, the caption up the top. That's what you submit in. So the council can, once the petition fills the form, council can do one of three things. They can vote on it right then and there as it is, and pass it, and we're over and done, because you followed the procedures. Two, they can amend it, and if they want to amend it, they can submit that to the voters, or they can just submit the ordinance as it is to the voters. Those three options. So the most important thing from my point of view is laying it all out there, let everybody have notice of what the form is. To me, the single most important thing for everybody is notice. If you got notice of something and you just screw it up, sorry. But if you don't, it's not clear, that's different.
Mr. Hulla, and the point that I think the 6 months, and the reason why is when you file for reelection, what can happen is if someone is getting recalled at the same time at the close of election, does that confuse things in that reelection bid? Because you're putting up a recall at the same time. The point of the recall, I mean, that's going to be the election itself.
Right.
So that's why I say at the end of the term, the 3 months doesn't, that's why I think the 6 months is put in there for that reason. Because at 3 months, you have to refile. So you're going to get that opportunity in 3 months to unelect that person anyways. That's why I think that 6 months is the difference. To me, you're going to remove it at that point. So 6 months is the purpose of that.
That's logical. Yeah,
Right? And that's why I bring that up. I just want you to understand the purpose. I understand where you guys are coming. I think we all want to make sure that we have the things. And Ms. Ray, I take everything that you say very, very much to heart. But we can't also allow the system to be overthought and to a point about our elected. That's why it's important to vote for the person that you want to select and make sure that you make an informed decision of who you're selecting. And unfortunately, I don't like this term, but elections have consequences, unfortunately.
Spoken like someone who doesn't have a Trump sticker on their truck.
Well, I'm a judge. Well, anyways. So, but my point is that there are reasons that we're trying to do here. And so with that, we do have an amendment on the floor. And so any other discussion? All right, Mr. London.
I'd like to propose an amendment to the amendment.
Okay, what is your amendment?
So amend the limitations on recall in section 12.11 to be within 2 months after they first take office, and return the ending portion nor within 6 months of the end of their term. And the reason for...
I think that's out of order at that point. That's changing it more than what, I mean,
Okay.
you can allow, but I think that changes the intent of the amendment. Mr. Powers?
I will withdraw my motion.
Okay, we have a motion withdrawn. All right, so at this point, we have discussion. We're back to discussion. The motion has been withdrawn.
So he withdrew his amendment.
Yes.
Okay.
So at any point now, you can put any other amendments up.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay. I would just make sure I was recognized.
Okay.
Okay, so I would like to propose an amendment to the limitations on recall in 12.11 to read after council member within 3 months to be within 2 months after they first take office, and continue with the rest of the sentence to the end of that, or within 3 months after an election for their recall, nor within 6 months of the end of their term. Just changing the first part to 2 months.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. We have, so we have a new amendment on the table. Any discussion on the new amendment? I'm good, but at this point, I will allow discussion. Roberta?
So 60 days now, but keeping the 6 months at the end. Yes. I'm just not comfortable with the 6 months.
Okay. All right. Ms. Tibbins?
Roberta, let me see if I can better explain what Mark was trying to say. When your term is about up, you have to decide in January if you're going to file again. So that is 5 months ahead of the end of your term. So if you move that to 3 months, it kind of overlaps. I could already have filed for the new election, and a recall wouldn't make any difference. So that's why the 6 months, based in the election cycle, kind of makes more sense. Did that help?
Okay, 60 days.
One second.
60
Roberta.
days at the beginning, like, which was what I recommended, but keeping, I'm sorry. 60 days, 2 months, 60 days on the beginning, 6 months at the end. Okay. Can I second it? No?
It's already been motioned and
Okay, yeah,
seconded.
okay.
All
there
right.
you go.
All right. Any other discussion on this amendment? Any other discussion on this amendment? Any other discussion on this amendment? All right. hold on, I didn't, Mr. Hollett, would you like to say something?
Oh, I thought you looked at me, I thought it was okay.
Yeah, Mr. Hollett, you may proceed.
Oh, thank you. Oh, thank you. See, that's a double good thing. Now Mr. Powers doesn't have one. So thank you for that. So, well, there you go.
Can we get back to order, please?
Yeah, no wonder he makes more than minimum wage. So if you've got the recall portion in there, you may not need to even mess with the censure. Here's why I say that it's good for the recall. If you're good with what you have, now the who remains or can be removed from city council is up to the people, and the schemes and games, and anytime I hear the word scheme, I think of Heath Ledger from Batman, schemers. So you don't have to worry about the schemers, because you're not going to mess with the censure or anything like that. The power's in the people to do the recall. So we may have saved ourselves a whole lot of work. I figured the chairman would appreciate that.
I do, and I appreciate the pop culture reference.
Oh, thank you.
All right. Now, any other discussion? Mr. Brewer, you've been quiet. Do you have anything? Okay. Any other discussion? All right, I'm going to call for your vote. The motion passes with 2 nays. All right.
For clarification, it's 60 days after they first take office, or within 60 days after an election for the recall, nor within 6 months.
6 months at the end. So it can't happen.
Okay, just the first 3 months. Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? No, wait, that was as amended. The amendment passes. Now we go back to the overall chapter on initiatives. And I saw Bev first.
I want to make sure that what Mr. Hallis stated is in here, that there is an actual checklist of what the referendums or the recalls have to include. So when somebody does present one, it's black and white. I don't want to have what happened to the other client. I want the citizens to have everything they need to do what they want to do.
So Mr. Hall, if there's language like that, would that take time for a council to look at that, or do we have a recommendation at that point? She's wanting more black and white. That's what I'm going to ask. Do you want an opportunity to look at this? All right, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to recess 5 minutes to allow council. Ms. Tibbins, if you have any outline. Ms. Heldreth, at this point, too, since we're in recess, your issues that you brought up earlier, if you'd like to bring that up to him, you may do so. We are taking a 5-minute recess.
It is 7:24. We will reconvene at 7:29.
Good call. Well, I have a fun joke there, but this is not a time for joking. Mr. Holla, it is a pleasure to have you here today, an honor and privilege. And then when you do have time afterwards, I need all the dirt. No, I'm kidding. We are now coming back at 7:32. We're now coming out of recess, and at this point, I'm going to call Mr. Holla to bring up the language that you would like to make as changes, as recommendations.
The only definite suggestions I have, where it says, the second sentence, initiative petition papers shall contain the full text of the proposed ordinance. I would also add, including a descriptive caption. Y'all have probably seen our ordinances, and up at the top, they have a short paragraph in all bold, all caps, and that's called the caption, and it's just a brief description of what's in the ordinance. So I would want the form, again, big on form, to look like our ordinances.
Okay, and it was a third one, or is that the third?
Yeah, the second one is sentence 2, 3. So the third sentence where it says, comma, but to each separate paper there shall be attached, instead of a statement of the circulator, again, I like better the affidavit of a circulator. That's my suggestion. Y'all do however you want, but I mean, I just like it. I'm going to trust that and feel a little more confident in the circulator when you've got something like that. And then, and you could probably, in fact, you could probably put there the circulator, comma, who shall be a qualified voter. I mean, I think we'd want a qualified voter to be the person who is circulating, you know, something like that.
And then your third?
Well, those were the three. The other one is those were strong recommendations I have. Okay. The last one is kind of more like what I mentioned. If you all want to talk about it, decide if you want to put in there and say, hey, look, this is what are going to be the options. The council can just pass it if they want to themselves, the way it is. They can amend it, send it to the voters, or they can just send it to the voters as is. If you want to throw that in there or something like that, you know, you don't have to necessarily.
Way to not make it easier. So
I just fully will inform everybody.
Ms. Hibbins.
Mr. Hella, I don't normally like to do this, but I'd like to correct something you said.
Oh, you love doing that. I don't know. Go right ahead.
When you talked about the circulator being a qualified voter, may we add in the last election, since it has to be 30% of the last election voters, why would we allow the circulator to not have voted in the last election?
Oh, look at you.
Ms. Dibbins, by the way, you're not correcting me on anything. That's just another suggestion. It could be a qualified voter for the next election, but if you want to say for the last one, that is absolutely fine.
But if it has to be 30% of the last election sign it, shouldn't the circulator have to have voted in the last election?
That is completely up to y'all as a commission.
And there is no amendment, so whatever language you prefer to put in at this point.
Excellent point.
So I would just like to point that out. Leslie?
I just want to clarify, because what you just said confused me though, but to sign a petition, or the number we need is 30% of, so if 100 people, this math's going to be off, if 100 people voted, you need 30 people to sign a petition, but they don't have to have voted in the last election, they just have to be a registered voter, correct?
They have to be qualified of the last election.
I thought that was just
The
related
clarity,
to numbers.
I mean, again, we have not clarified it to the language. It's not clarified as such.
The way the language reads, I interpret it that it's the number that we're trying to get to, not whether or not you can sign it.
Right, right. All right, Mr. Rock, I saw yours.
Back to a scenario that you mentioned earlier, could you restrict the individual, the petitioner, from not being the individual who lost in the last election, so you don't have somebody trying to vendetta?
Well,
I mean, you could, but now you're getting really getting to a lot of details.
And I think you bring up a great point. But Mike, I pose this question back to you, and only as a question to the group, is then at that point, do people see that clearly as what it is, and do you do that? And that was kind of the point where I went back to the 3 months versus the 2 months. But again, if you get a petition and you see who's originating it, do you see it for what it is? So I understand that, and I think those are great points. Mr. Dean, you were up next.
My comment came from before the break.
Okay.
And because Mr. Hollis scared me. Because there could be city attorneys, not of the ilk that we have, but of lesser standards, and say in 1207, advising the city council, those aren't grounds. You don't need to vote on that.
I mean, he's right, there are a lot less.
On what part? Oh, okay.
Is that, so my question to the city attorney is that possible? Can the city council say, those aren't grounds, we're not accepting your recall petition?
Oh, that's actually a really interesting question. I think arguably you could put it in the charter. My opinion is a court, maybe not the 5th district because they have no idea what they're doing, but in average,
I'm going to strike that comment just because.
I personally think, and that really is a very interesting question, I think ultimately that charter provision would be held to be unconstitutional because I think it would be an unreasonable restriction.
Correct.
On the fundamental right to vote. That's what I think. That's my opinion.
Right.
Man, I like that question.
All right.
So you're saying no, that would never happen, or it couldn't without a
That's not what he's saying. It could happen.
Couldn't without a constitutional emergency in McLendon-Chisholm. Okay, I'm good with that.
I appreciate that we're thinking it through, and we're not taking it lightly. All right. Again, any other discussion, and is there any other motions that need to be made? Any other discussion? Ms. Thibbins.
To section 1203, I would like to add all the verbiage suggested by Mr. Howell.
All right. So we have a motion. Do I have a second? Ms. Powers. All right. We have a motion and second. Now we're into discussion. Mr. Powers, you may proceed.
I was just wondering if we could repeat those changes, please.
All right. So, Mr. Hollow, will you please restate those recommendations? And you do have it written down so we can submit to Mr. Brewer.
So on sentence 2, it should be the initiative petition papers shall contain the full text of the proposed ordinance and a detailed caption, or excuse me, descriptive caption.
And descriptive caption. Okay. Second.
So the second one would come on the third sentence after the but to each separate paper there shall be attached an affidavit of the circulator, comma, who shall be a qualified voter of the city.
So striking a statement and inserting affidavit of the circulator.
Who shall be a qualified voter of the city.
Who shall be a qualified voter of the city.
Yeah, leave the shall in there.
All right. Any others? All right. That is a motion as amendment, and there's a second on the amendment. Any other further discussion? Any other further discussion? Any other further discussion? I call for your vote. Pass unanimously. Very good. Great job, everyone. Any other discussion on this matter? Any other discussion on this matter? Any other discussion on the matter? I call for your vote. Passes unanimously. Congratulations, everyone. Now we go to 5.4, Chapter 13, franchises. Do I have a motion on this issue? Ms. Wright? We have a motion to accept as written. Do I have a second? All right, Roberta, second. Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? I call for your vote. All right, it passes unanimously. We go to chapter 5.5, section 5.5, chapter 14, general and transitional provisions. Any discussion? Any motion? Mr. Dean?
I have a question on 1419, which,
That's out of order. We don't have a motion at this time. Nope, we have no motion at this one. Mr. Powers?
I make a motion that we accept chapter 14 as written.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? I just see Ms. Helder at this first, okay? And second. All right, now we're into discussion. Mr. Dean?
no, I don't want to talk now.
Thanks.
1419, and we may have to, this will be part, if I'm not out of order, part of the chapter 4 possible discussion, but just help me out with the way it's written now. Council seat, place, appointed, 3 terms. Why is the mayor's seat only for 2 years, and then in 26 it's elected to a 3-year? Why did we do that? I forget. Is there a reason why we did that?
I think that was a miss on our end from the change.
Yeah, you should have had a copy that says council seat place 6 will be appointed upon approval of the charter. 3-year terms will commence in regular elections for council places 2, 4, and 6, and the mayor's seat in 2026. 3-year terms for council places 1, 3, and 5 will commence in 2027. The previous draft had it with the mayor on a separate deal, but since the last vote, we had to combine it, so I modified that to reflect the vote that took place last time with.
All right, thank you. I was looking at last week.
That's okay. All right.
So, thanks, Jerry.
There you go. All right. So at this point, we have a motion and a second. Any other further discussion? Any other further discussion? Any other further discussion? I call for your vote. All right. Passes unanimously. All right. Chapter 5, 6, Chapter 15, Adoption of Charter. Do I have a motion? Vice Chairman.
I'd like to motion that we accept the the charter as newly amended and now as written.
Under the Chapter 15 adoption.
Yes.
And Ms. Wright? We have a second. Any discussion? Anyone not want their name in this charter?
No.
Mr. Powers?
If there is a prior section I wanted to bring up, is now the time or after this
No,
vote?
because this is just the end of the chapter. You'll have an opportunity after this. I will be bringing that back out.
Thank you.
Leslie?
This is probably just a clerical thing,
Yep.
but there's no title on the printed version of the chapter. Oh, it's on the
Yep.
page
It's
break.
there.
You need a page break.
Page break. Any other
Sorry.
discussion on this section? All right. Any other discussion? Any other discussion? I call for your vote. All right, passes unanimously. Now we go back now, is what we're going to do is go back and revisit at this time. Any other discussions you heard through public comments or anything else you want to revisit before we move to Chapter 6, which is the future setting meeting dates and topics for the next steps. We do have that. So at this point, is there anything that anyone wants to revisit at this time? I will accept those motions at this time. Mr. Powers?
Yes, going to Section 2.
Section 2.
I would like to propose on Section 2, I apologize, it's item 9, to have the exclusive right to erect, own, maintain, and operate a waterworks. That's what I'm referring to.
Okay. All right.
And everybody there? I would like to make a motion, and I would like to make a motion that the language be added in the first line of number 9, to have the exclusive right to erect, own, maintain, operate a waterworks and a sanitary system for the use of said city and its inhabitants, and to regulate the same, or to contract for those services.
Okay. We have a motion to amend that section.
I second.
All right, we have a second. At this point, I'm going to go to Mr. Holla. Any comments on this amendment?
I mean, it's fine if you want it. From a strict legal standpoint, it is redundant because part of maintaining
Is the waterworks.
maintain. If you want to do the contract, you can do
Right.
contracts. You don't need it in there, but if you want it,
I mean, yeah. So,
Yeah, thank you. The other option in language, if we didn't like the language, there's another option for language if somebody didn't like it. The reason being is when we were discussing this last time, before we voted on it,
guys,
we were discussing this last time before we voted on it. It was one of the members or more of the members had some misgivings about that because the water issue is such a major issue that's going on, and we, even on the commission, needed the attorney to clarify it for us. So I am imagining citizens who are going to be reading this and given the environment regarding water, if we simply put in here that the city has the exclusive right to do that or contract for those services, it eliminates the need for any questions, confusions, or explanations to anybody at any time for any reason. So it's a few words that will eliminate a lot of discussion and confusion in the future.
the only caution I have is sometimes more is not better.
agreed.
So what you're doing is contract, and I hear where you're coming from, so I want to, whatever y'all decide, honestly, is fine with me. I just want y'all to know, like I said about notice, I've told y'all everything, I've advised you, whatever you want to do will not hurt my feelings, because I've done my job and advised you of everything. And that's all I'm trying to do here. But because contracting is part of maintaining, it is underneath the maintaining umbrella, now you're making it separate and not underneath that umbrella. And that could cause problems. Okay, well, with the contract, well, what else are we allowed to do? Blah, blah, blah. And then you get into what's under
You're starting
maintaining,
to
what's
split
under
hairs and they
contract.
make it even more confusing.
Yeah, that's my only concern. And also, but I want to be sensitive to what Mr. Powers is saying too, is remember last time we talked about the couple of town hall meetings we're going to have and educating the people and telling them, hey, if we want a contract, we can do that because that's part of maintaining. So.
And waterworks and sanitation go hand in hand at that point too, correct?
Right.
Yeah.
And again, like we talked about last time, this has zero bearing on our situation right now.
Okay.
Whether that passed on the charter or not would not change our situation right now at all.
Ms. Hildreth? Okay. Yes.
If you want me to be,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think that would be, I mean, he has the ability to, and I think he will also, by the way, through this process now, and I think what I'll address that is we're going to be addressing that in 6. So I hear that. I think at this point would be more appropriate under 6 on next steps. I don't want to, I think that would be more appropriate in next steps.
I'm fine with that. I can talk about that then.
Yeah, and I think clarity, that would be in the next steps. So that process could be addressed in next steps.
I think what she's saying too, she wants an answer to that question because it will help her make a decision on.
I get it.
And I understand. I can say this, as long as it's a night, I mean, a guy that works minimum wage, I gotta have other clients. So as long as there's not a conflict, I could be an attorney of lesser ilk and just happen to be here, but as long as we can work something out where we're gonna have it, absolutely, yes, I will be here.
Okay, tell me, Mr. Crawford. Okay, all right, so we have any other discussion on this amendment or on this subject at hand? Any other discussion on this topic? Any other discussion? All right, so we have a motion and a second. I am going to call for your vote. It looks like the motion fails. All right. Any other discussion? Mr. Crawford? At this point, and where you like to make an amendment, as we've had any previous discussed items. And the other thing, Mr. Hall, is technically, now because we do have those amendments and it has passed, the proper thing would be you have to have voted in the affirmative for that issue to reconsider those issues. So, yeah, any other amendments, you have to actually be in the affirmative. All right?
I guess what I'm trying to do is what we had discussion that. Microphone.
I had it on. It went off. What we had in our public comments tonight, that we revisit the election cycle and see if we need to discuss that further, if it needs to be. I've heard more than just the people that were here that night. I've heard other people that have commented about it. So I would like to make a motion that we discuss that again. And I did, but I want to make sure that people are heard.
Okay.
On it.
So do you have an amendment at this time?
Amendment that we revisit in the election cycle to see if it's more appropriate to have it as proposed by the public.
So I think at this time, to revisit, so your motion is to revisit the topic, but you don't have a motion to amend at this time,
No.
right? All right, so we have a motion to revisit the elections process, or chapter, correct? All right, so we have a motion to revisit the elections chapter.
I second.
And we have Roberta as a second. All right, do we have any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? I call for your vote. Sorry. All right, you want me to start? Mr. Dean, I'll call it out. All right, Ms. Stibbins.
I can appreciate what the public said about changing it to, if we're going to have a 3-year cycle, which we had voted last time to only have a 2-year cycle and leave the 3rd year open. The public maybe didn't know we had done that, so they were looking at the 3-year cycle to do 2, 2, 2, and the mayor. I can appreciate the thought, but given election costs, I still would like to stay with what we passed in our last meeting.
Okay. All right. So at this point, I think that Ms. Wright.
I wanted to clarify, so under selection, we have.
All right. That's going to be out of order because it has to be on the revisiting. So you're actually going into the topic. Our motion currently is to revisit it. So that's where we have a motion and a second to revisit the election code. That is where we're at on a motion. So then after that motion, we can enter and discuss. But at this point, we have not revisited it yet. His motion was to revisit.
I just wanted to ask a clarifying question.
Okay.
Because one section has every 2 years, the next section says shall serve a term of 3 years. So there's a conflict. So
again, I think that is not where we're at. That is out of order at this time. No, I know. All right. Well, the only discussion we're having at this point is on the revisiting. So if we have, so right now, is there any discussion on the revisiting, and then we can vote to go revisit that subject? Ms. Reich. End amendment. End amend. End to change. Any other And then if not, I'm going to call for a vote, and it's to revisit this section. Mr. Reich? Well, I think that's what we're going to get to. If we revisit it, that's what we can discuss. All right. Anything, Mr. Powers?
Yeah, I think the point is to be, do our due diligence for the citizens that came in and expressed a concern over that. So perhaps out of courtesy to them, we could reopen it and discuss it. It may turn out the same way,
Right.
but at least we can discuss it for them.
Right. Correct. All right. I'm going to go ahead and move to the vote. Call for a vote. All right. We are now revisiting the section. Ms. Wright, I am going to give you the opportunity since I want you to have your say.
Okay, and it might just be I'm misreading it, but if we look here, what's on screen, section 303B, selection, it states that these shall run, it has, as we denote these different positions, and shall run the second year. The term states the mayor shall serve a term of 3 years. So if they're being elected every 2 years, is that not in conflict? Am I just misreading it?
It's a 3-year term.
Three-year. Everyone's going to make a 3-year term.
Okay.
All right.
It is, I see what you're saying, it is kind of confusing.
On the second year. No,
Okay,
that's,
okay. Okay, sorry, I just read it quickly and I'm like, wait, second, third, okay, I'll
the
reread
mayor
more
is going to be
slowly.
in the second year of the way that the way it's like, because we're not doing odds and evens anymore. So a lot of the common language when it was 2, it was sections were even years and odd years. Now that we're going to 3-year terms,
Got it.
the point, and it should say is
He will run
that
with
second,
the even places. The mayor shall run with the even places.
but we don't have
no.
odd and even now, so that would
We
not.
do.
Well, that no longer should not say odd or even because that's not possible. It's even numbered positions, not year. I'm sorry. So it would be the odd positions and the even positions.
And so the mayor will run with the even number.
Correct. Yeah, that would be
There
correct.
you go.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Mr. Chairman,
Vice Chair.
so how about to hopefully remove the confusion on what we're looking at for this section B? It states odd number positions 1 through 5 shall run the first year after charter adoption. Even numbered positions and the mayor position shall run the second year after charter adoption. That way it puts it in a defined statement of regarding the years and separation.
All right. Would you like to make that as a motion? Hold on.
But
Ms. Simmons.
the charter is going to be voted on in 25, correct? And so are the odd numbered positions in 25. So they would have to run in 25 and 26? That'd make sense. So in 25, they're going to have a 2-year term. They're going to run for their 2-year term. The charter is passed at the same time. Do they get extended a third year automatically?
In the, in the transitional portion in chapter 14, it talks about that.
Yes.
It says
That is addressed in the transition.
they're elected 1, 3, and 5 that are elected in 25 would run in 2027 to start 3-year terms because they'll have to serve their 2-year term at that point.
Okay, so do we need to reword this section to not be in the first year?
No, because I think
Because
that,
the first year would be 26, and that isn't when the odd numbers would run. Right?
If you take that with the transition language, then yes, I see what you're saying. But if we didn't have to have a transitional period, if we didn't have 1, 3, and 5 running next year, it would just be the charter. Everything would be,
all right.
then I can see the flip
So
around.
Right.
I'm going to ask for clarification. Mr. Holla, would it be more appropriate to have first cycle and second cycle, not year? Cycle versus year, because I think that's where the confusion is. Cycle, the first cycle and the second cycle.
Or could you say shall run together, even number of positions and the mayor position run together? Because that's really what those sentences are supposed to kind of
Right.
point out.
Mr. Hollow? All right. Do I need to give you another break again?
What we're really talking about is to get the ball rolling after the charter.
Right.
So what you could say is, upon adoption of this charter, the odd number of positions shall run the first year, the even number of positions and the mayor position shall run the second year. So that lets everybody know that this whole first year, second year is upon adoption of the charter. Just a thought.
But that would also be under the transitional language. And that, I think, as it is,
You could put that in that you could put that there too. Just something that's letting everybody know that this whole, 135, 246 in the mayor, that whole thing is starting up on the adoption of the charter.
Leslie,
I might be making this worse, but I'm pretty sure the transitional language is backwards, and I realize I'm probably out of order bringing it up now. But
I'll because I think it's clarifying
in the
at this
first
point.
year after the charter is adopted, it's actually going to be positions 2, 4, 6. And then if we do 1, 3, 5, the year after that, then when you come back to this,
Yeah.
if we were to leave the gap here, you've still got another, So we've got to rethink that depending on where we land on 303.
So it could be even numbered positions, 2, 4, 6, and the mayor positions shall run the first year. Or the first year following the passage of the charter.
I like that.
And then odd number positions, 1, 3, and 5 shall run the second year after passage of the charter.
There you go. I like that.
Cycle.
Yeah. Election cycle.
I can only give brilliance once, Jen, and that's it.
All right. So at this point, it looks like we're going to have multiple motions, but at this point, do I have a motion, amendment on this section that we would like to approach? Do we have a motion? I'm going to go, Ms. Wright.
Motion
And your motion is?
to accept. What is my motion?
Right.
I wanted
Hold on. I'm gonna decline and allow someone else. Anyway, you're out of order at this point. Vice Chairman, I saw you next.
I'll make the motion to accept the amendment as described by Commissioner Hildreth. No? Oh, by Councilman Brewer.
All right, so at that point, Mr. Brewer, I'm going to ask you to restate your issue so we get it correctly.
So the amended language would say, even numbered positions 2, 4, 6, and the mayor position shall run the first year upon passage of the charter. Odd number positions 1, 3, 5 shall run the second year, second cycle. Instead of year, put in cycle. Second cycle following the passage of the charter.
Election cycle instead of just cycle.
Yeah, election cycle.
Elections.
Okay, all right. Even numbered positions 2, 4, 6, and the mayor position shall run the first year upon the passage of the city charter, or shall run the first election cycle upon the passage of the charter. Odd number positions 1, 3, 5 shall run the second election cycle after the passage of the charter.
All right, so basically, the next time they come up, it would be the mayor cycle. And that's how we're going to make it work. All right, so, and do I have a second? Ms. Wright?
Please let me redeem myself. I moved second
Okay,
the amendment as amended by Councilman Brewer.
well, he doesn't amend it, it's going to be as amended as Vice Chairman.
As Vice Chairman.
All right, very good. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion at this point on the amendment? Leslie?
I feel like we just really confuse the issue because when we throw in after the adoption of the charter, we are talking about the transition. We are not talking about what happens after that second cycle. This section is supposed to be about the future and not
Okay. Okay. All right. So, all right. Ms. Tibbins.
So, I can't make a new motion, can I?
No, we're in an amendment, and you can either ask to amend this amendment, or we can vote it down and just wait, and we will let the motion die. Or we
Can
vote
I
against it.
amend, can I amend? I
You
can
can make
amend
a
the
friendly amendment.
Okay, so since we are talking about section B under 3.03, and you're right, Leslie, we did mess it up. It should say the even numbered positions 2, 4, and 6 and the mayor will run in one election cycle, with the odd number positions 1, 3, and 5 running in the next election cycle.
Okay? Now, that is a amendment. Vice Chairman, would you accept that as a friendly amendment?
I would change one word instead of next election cycle.
You're out of order.
Follow. So I want to do, tell me how to get in order so it doesn't.
Hold on. Put your yellow sticker up. All right. Mr. Holla.
Instead of saying next, I would say following, because you're going to have some people go, next what? Next, but following, that
I will accept
logically
following.
means-
Okay. So with including the language of following. All right. Now we're on the friendly amendment. Mr. Holla.
Thank you, Ms. Tibbins.
All right. Can I turn off his mic for a minute? Mr. Powers.
Can we have everybody withdraw their motions and start a fresh one, please?
We
have 3 things going.
It is a request, but
I will approve the friendly amendment.
okay. So we have a motion to run. So does your second stand? Yes. All right. We have a friendly amendment.
Okay, and then we can go to his discussion.
So we can go back to your discussion. So anything
Mr.
else you want to add at this time? He's just asking for he's asking for the withdrawal, and we accepted the friendly amendment.
Just to get a clean one going. Nobody has to give up their ideas, but let's get a clean one going. We got 3 different things going, and I'm not that bright.
At this point, we just restate now as amended what your language would be. So I think at this point, the appropriate thing would be to restate the motion as amended now.
Okay, I didn't.
Do you need help from?
I think I do, because I was going through the approval on what Councilman Brewer had stated, and then it was amended, and then.
So you can withdraw, and we can have a new motion. That also is what he's asking for, and then we can have the new motion filed.
Sure, I'll withdraw my.
All right, motion's been withdrawn. All right, Ms. Tibbins.
Okay, I will make a motion to amend section 3.03, section B, selection, to read, the mayor shall be elected to office at large. The council shall be elected to office at large, but by specific place, with the designated places being place 1, place 2, place 3, place 4, place 5, and place 6. Even numbered positions and the mayor shall run together, and the odd numbered positions 1, 3, and 5 shall run the following cycle.
Okay. All right, so we have a motion to amend. Do I have a second? Roberta seconds. So we have a motion by Bev Simmons and a second to amend by Roberta. Discussion. Mr. Reich.
Can you restate that? Because I think you kind of left something out in the first part of it.
Well, that's what Dennis said too. Okay, so I make a motion to amend section 3.03, section B, selection. The mayor shall be elected to office at large. The council shall be elected to office at large, but by specific places, which shall be designated as place 1, place 2, place 3, place 4, place 5, and place 6. Even numbered positions 2, 4, and 6, and the mayor shall run together and
At the next cycle.
shall run together, and then the odd numbered positions, 1, 3, and 5, shall run the following cycle.
But you don't state that the first ones are running in the first cycle, or the first following cycle. You left
Because we're not talking about the following cycle anymore, because it's in the transition section. This is only to be in concrete of when they run always, not in transition after the approval.
Any other discussion? Any other discussion? Mr. Powers?
Just that we need to add election cycle.
Election.
Instead of cycle by itself.
Election cycle. Is that a friendly amendment? All right, it is amended. All right. Any other discussion? Any other discussion? Any other discussion? I call for your vote. Passes unanimously. Any other discussion as we go through, as we are now revisiting election? Any other discussion? Any other discussion? All right. At that point, I'm going to go ahead and close this discussion and revisit. All right. At this point, is there anything else we want to revisit outside of the elections now that we want to discuss? Mrs. Sario?
Dennis also.
No, I saw you first.
I missed to pick this up too quickly, but to chapter 13, franchises. I didn't get my little yellow card up quick enough on chapter 13, franchises. And this is really quick. There was a section that I found in City of Royce City's charter where they had added a section that said, no franchise shall be granted for a term of more than 20 years from the date of the grant, renewal, or extension of any franchise. And I put this to consideration if anyone wants to, my fellow commissioners, would like to add this to chapter 13.
So right now you're not making an amendment, you're just discussing it.
I would make an amendment.
Okay. And your amendment is?
My amendment is to add to chapter 13, franchises, a section for no franchise shall be granted. Under here it says ordinance granting franchise. No franchise shall be granted for a term of more than 20 years from the date of the grant, renewal, or extension of any franchise.
Okay. Do I have a second? Do I have a second? Do I have a second? The motion dies for lack of second.
It's all right.
Okay. All right. Mr. Powers?
Yeah, this is just conversation, right?
At this point, anything you want to bring up?
I just wanted to say to our the citizen that's here in regard to the vote making it 2-year terms. One of the overriding reasons for that is we would have an election every single year, not to mention any special elections that came along and so forth. What was the expense per election? Do you remember that figure? $30,000 per election. So that was one of the considerations of several.
But I also want to clarify, special elections still can happen, so it does not eliminate every year having an election.
Correct.
It just lessens the opportunity of that to a president. Mr. London?
Point of clarification on the chapter 6 as presented by Councilman Brewer at the beginning. Do we need to make a motion for adoption? Or?
That was as presented from last meeting.
Okay.
It was a typo. It's Scrivener. So it's not, there's not a need, it's just like everyone's going to review and it was only meant as a typo.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Any other discussion on this? Leslie?
So I actually don't know what section it was in, but I had my notes from last week that we were going to go back and revisit something. So can I just bring it up as a point of discussion and then?
If you only know what it is, I guess so.
I do know what it is.
All right,
So
very good.
when we were talking about the city attorney and making it so he had to be present at meetings. We talked about revisiting the meetings section, so I don't know if that's the meetings quorum section
Correct.
or what that is, but adding language that council could not take action
was
that
under
set
quorum.
legal. Yeah, I think, but it was something along the lines of council cannot take action that sets legal precedent if the city attorney is not present.
And I think
And I
we
just
said
wanted
that
to
under,
revisit it.
that would be under, just for
Should be under
clarification
meetings.
only, the section that you are discussing is section 3.07, meetings quorum.
Okay. I just wanted to bring that back up because I felt like it
All
was
right.
a good idea.
So do you have,
me to make a
so you're
mo-
making a motion to revisit section 307?
Yes.
All right. And so we have a motion to revisit 307. We have a second by Hildreth. All right. Any discussion on revisiting section 307? Any discussion? 307? Any discussion on 307? Call, Ms. Wright.
I would like to request a moment to read 307.
Okay, this is just to revisit it. So you're going to get that moment, but we're going to go ahead and call for your vote on this issue, and then we'll revisit. All right, all passed unanimously. Now we have the ability to revisit it. So take your time, and I'll allow for a moment. I'll give another minute just to allow review. You better not be telling her to steal third. No. Okay. Sliding into first, huh? All right. Way to go with the baseball lingo. No, we're in section 307, just so you know. 703 is not applied at this time. Yeah, but that's not, there was a reason why that's a, we're in 307, so that would be out of order. All right, it's been 1 minute. I'm going to allow us to discuss it. Is there anyone taking action in 307 at this time? Do you have a question in 307?
I was going to propose an amendment, but
All
I'm not
right.
sure I know the exact language,
All right,
so.
take
I'll
your
accept
attempt and we'll
friendly
see if we'll
amendments.
get there.
So I'm thinking at the end of that section, we add something that says, the city council shall not take action that sets or unsets, and unsets is not the word I want to use, legal precedent without the city attorney present. in the
Would you like the city attorney to
Yes.
recommend language?
Yes.
Mr. Hala?
You could put, let's see. What did I got here, don't I? It's easier. Yeah, I guess you could put it at the end. You could say, the city council shall not, shall not make any decision,
Shall not make any substantive decision? Yep, sorry. That's what happens when you slur your words all the time. I can't say aluminum either.
well, I'm trying to make it specific enough so it doesn't just like affect everything, but you want to make sure that they consult, because they don't have to go by with what the attorney says. Mr. Powers will tell you that. But you want to at least mandate that they consult,
Shall consult.
Yeah, you say, yeah. I mean, I guess you could keep it kind of broad. The city council shall not make any make a decision regarding any legal matter without consultation with the city attorney. You could do that.
It still doesn't fix it, but go ahead.
That's the trick, too.
Go ahead.
So Mr. Holla, we have you take a look at our language in section 702.
Out of order.
As it may pertain to this.
No, because that would be out of order. It has to be 3.7.
You
Sorry.
have exactly the same numbers, 3.7.03,
No,
3.07.
I get it, but that would be out of order. That can be discussed, but it cannot be addressed at the same time. We are only discussing 3.7 at this time. That would be out of order.
Give you an idea for language.
So am I still in the middle?
Sorry,
Am I
but
still in the
now
middle
we're
of
going to
making an
sound
amendment? Am I still in the
Leslie.
middle of making an amendment, or what are we, where are we at?
You have the amendment right now. I mean, actually, technically, you had the floor from the amendment. You haven't submitted anything. So right now, you have an opportunity.
Well, I did, but then,
Yeah, and it hasn't been seconded, so it's technically
well,
dead.
that's what I was gonna say, is we can't talk about anything, because we don't have a.
No, we can talk about it. I need an amendment to vote on an amendment. You can have any discussion right now.
Okay.
You can discuss as well. Just can't do 7.3. Mr. Powers.
I was wondering if Commissioner London had some language that he thought might be appropriate in this discussion.
All right.
I'm still wondering that.
Mr. Holla.
So actually, I appreciate what Vice Chair London did, so I did look at what we're talking about. So the trick here is making it specific, but not too specific. I mean, you don't want to do some broad language, like anything at all. You don't want them to have to consult, with the attorney, but you also don't want to make it too specific that we could track the language of the 7.03, make it consistent. We could say the city council shall not make a decision on any litigation or legal proceedings without consultation, without first consulting with the city attorney.
Okay. Is that what you want?
That would match.
All right. So, since he doesn't have an amendment on that,
It's your
I'm
yellow.
going to assume the intent of the vice chairman was yellow. You may proceed, Mr. London.
No, I'm approving his amendment.
Okay.
Because that's where we are.
She
All
asked you to.
I'd like that to be my motion.
All right.
and-
You want to restate his motion?
No.
So you want to just say you make a motion as recommended by Mr. Holla?
Yes, I would make a motion as recommended by Mr. Holla.
All right. And we have a second by Ms. Stevens. Now we're into discussion. We have any further discussion? Any further discussion? I call for your vote. All right, it passes. At this time, is there any further discussion on this matter since we revisited? Any other discussion in this matter? This discussion is now closed. All right. Any other discussion that we have revisited that anyone else would like to revisit under section 4? Ms. Wright?
Not 4. I have a question, but not.
What is your question?
It's what are we calling it, a typo?
Okay, you can bring up typo.
Okay.
What, Ms. Wright?
I wanted to bring up under section 15.01, submission and election, typo of just all of this is through alphabetical, so there needs to be a switch between Beverly and Leslie.
Okay. All right. And Mr. Bird, do you understand? Okay, good. That way, whenever Mr. Brewer or I change it, I have two people that know what we're talking about. All right.
Alphabets are hard.
All right. Okay, any other discussion? Any other discussion? Any other discussion? Discussions on these matters are now closed. We are now moving to section 6. Discussion for the next setting of future meetings, dates, topics, and next steps. So at this time, Congratulations, everyone. We have completed the document that we will now be presented. So now, I would like Mr. Brewer to state our next, as our scheduled steps. Would you like to discuss that?
Sure. So, in general terms, what I perceive doing is we'll make all the changes that were discussed today. I'll send it out to everybody to give it another once through over, make sure I didn't miss something or along those lines. If everybody's good, I will send it to Mr. Holla to give another once over himself. And then if he's good with it, then my proposal would be in January, we have our very first town hall, and we can schedule that probably.
And we can do the emergency meeting if we needed to, if any
Yes.
major.
Oh, yeah, and so we will have a couple sets of minutes that we're gonna need to approve and that kind of thing. So it may be a deal after Mr. Holla looks at it, we reconvene, it could be a quick meeting of approving the minutes.
Can we do that? Well, no, never mind. I was gonna say by Zoom, just to make it quick, but that probably would not be appropriate.
Yeah, I mean, technically you could, but you'd still need,
Yeah.
four here,
Yep.
person
Yeah.
on the agenda. We'd
All
have
right.
language under 5511,
Yeah,
127.
that's why I caught myself.
But
All
you
right.
could.
So the other question I have to you, and I want to ask to each of you, and this is in this next step, are we all comfortable with just Mr. Holla reviewing, or is there a recommendation to go to an outside review to make sure our process? Are we comfortable with what we have to do? No, this is a question because it is done in other cities. They do use an outside. Do we make that recommendation? Ms. Wright?
I am comfortable having Mr. Holla
Okay.
review.
All right. Mr. Powers?
Same with me, there's no need to go
Okay,
outside.
good. Mrs. Sarah? Sorry.
I believe that we pulled the majority of this from existing documents, so we're not really too far out, and I agree with.
All right, very good. What it is I want to make sure we're all comfortable. This is about building our consensus that when we go back to it, we were comfortable together as a unit. And at this point, too, I want to say the way that we have all worked together, I think has been a great example for at the speed that we have worked and the unity that we have worked has been excellent. We've had great discussions. No one has been injured during this period. And that is, and I think we have all acted like model citizens that we should. And I'm proud of each of you. So with that being said, what? What's that, Holla? All right. So at this point, I think at this point, I think the recommendation is that we are going to review and approve our minutes.
I need to lift.
Can't, oh, okay. Well, all right. Next time, please step off and then, okay. All right. So, I think our next steps will be that we're going to review our minutes, and we'll have one more meeting. Will be a quick one, only to approve our minutes, and give 30 days to allow Mr. Holla to review any other issues that might come up.
So, do you want to have that meeting, so 30 days, say the first part of January, the second week of January?
I think we can approve the first week of January, and because we had a schedule for that first week. Is that how we had it in the agenda, or is it that second? How do we have it
It's normally
scheduled?
every second Wednesday.
So we do that first week, the first week of January, to have a
January
meeting.
6th, oh, I'm sorry, wait a second. Well, the first Wednesday is January 1st. I don't think that's gonna work.
I cannot do that second week, and I think that's,
The 15th would be,
do we have anything on that Thursday or anything after that? Is that going to make it difficult just for that quick meeting?
Thursday being the
second or third, that same week. I think we need to keep it in that week is what my concern is. So also, the reason why is because then if we vote on something, we can get it on the agenda for the council. That was my intent. So I think it would either that or Monday the 30th, December 30th. No? No? Okay. So 30 days from today would definitely not work for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
Unless you're just that big of a Grinch. Thursday the 2nd, but that way we can have it on the agenda to move it forward to council, because that once we approve that, the secretary can move it.
As long as we can get it on the council agenda by that, I would say the first meeting of the council in February, which would be the 12th, then we should be good. I think honestly, between the 1st and the 12th, we would try to have a town hall, right?
Yeah.
And
I think that's what we're trying to accomplish, is to stay on that schedule.
yeah.
So I think January 2nd works. But is there going to be anyone out of town that's going to really mess it up? Okay. I'm okay with us allowing a remote, Zoom for those who need to vote remotely.
I might be out of town.
And that way we can achieve it if we need to. And it's not meant to be a big fast. It's meant to be fast. All right? So what we will do is we're going to recess. Well,
Jerry, did I hear you say it wouldn't go to council till the first meeting in February 11th?
That would be the earliest, yeah.
Okay, so we have the whole month of January. We don't have to meet on January 2nd.
no, so here's the issue with that. That would be that, but that was also to include that we have the public hearings
The town
before it
halls.
goes. The town
The town
halls.
halls,
That was
before February 11th.
that was the intent.
Gotcha.
Now, here's the other thing that we could do if you wanted to. We could do it this way. We could have all three of these with that first meeting of the town hall. We could do that. The town hall, and we vote, and then we have the town hall at the same time.
Yeah, or as Mr. Hollow has referred to, is we have a public hearing on it.
Yeah.
We approve the minutes, we have a public hearing to get input from the community, and then, and if anything needs to be changed, we can do it during the course of that
And the
meeting.
reason I prefer,
Mr. Hollow.
the reason I prefer the public hearing is with a town hall, usually can't have more than a couple of council members there for quorum issues. Whereas I like the public hearing because although we weren't great at it last time, but there's not supposed to be discourse between the council and the people who attend. With a public hearing, the whole council could be present and hear what anybody had to say or comments made on,
Okay.
yeah. And so everybody would have 3 minutes.
So we're going to allow for the public hearing.
Yeah, that's what I,
And then
why
we'll
I
do
prefer.
everything.
That's why.
All right, I saw that first.
So, point of clarification. The city council would be at the public hearing with us? and
Yes.
They wouldn't be the audience.
It'd be a joint.
They wouldn't be the audience, they'd be here with us, and they would not converse back and forth?
Yeah, we could publish it as a joint city council, home rule charter, commission meeting. Absolutely.
We could do it as a joint. And we'd just be like right here, it'd be crowded. But yeah,
And the public can make their comments, but no one can answer back. Where at town
Correct.
hall, there can be two-way conversation.
it could be discourse.
Because,
and-
the reason why is because they're not a quorum of the council there. That's why. So now, if you want to put it as, you can call a meeting, look, you can do pretty much anything you want to do under the law as long as you put it on the agenda. So if you want to put on the agenda, joint meeting with the Home Rule Charter Commission and City Council and discussion with public regarding Home Rule Charter, you can do that, and then you can have the whole discussion if you want to do that.
Because don't you think it's only right
like
the
that
first
too.
time the public gets, I mean, there's been a few here, but not very many. We can't not answer them. We have to be able to explain
agree.
why we put in here what we did.
I like it too.
Mr. Hall just provided.
And I think also it gives a little bit more time, and with due respect, I'll get to you in a second, sir. Because when we talk about 30 days, what that puts us is at Christmas. That's not fair to Mr. Hollow. He needs the holidays too. So,
Attorneys are people too.
I didn't say that. That's going a little. But Mr. Hollow, you wanted to say something else.
I just want to thank Jody for liking my idea and thinking it's really good.
You're out of order. No, in all seriousness. So at this point, Ms. Haldreth.
I just want to clarify, would be on January 2nd.
No.
Okay, good.
No.
Good.
This would actually be a set date that we can, the question now would be, we can come up with a point, where we're at right now is discussion is skipping all that and putting it in that those minutes would be approved at the public joint meeting. Which I guess what would be is we would go back to council to see what day works best for them and allow them to approve that date. Leslie.
So I just want to understand what we're proposing, because I've done.
We're proposing.
No, but let me just add, because I've done I do public meetings for a living. This is what I do. And I've always been under the impression that it would be more of like the back and forth, but also like the way I understand us describing it is the public has to come up, stand at the podium, say their comments, we talk back to them. I was picturing more like an open house where we could have one-on-one conversations with the public, because I think you get a lot more done. I think there's benefits of both. But
The idea is that if you wanted the council present, the public hearing would be the more appropriate. If you don't want them to have any say in it in just the public meeting, then the point is, I think the addressing with the public hearing, I think it works, but I understand because typically, since we haven't had those joint meetings on those joint hearings, it did happen in charters in the past. I've had those joint meetings on a comprehensive plan in the city, so I think it's good. Mr. Powers.
Yes, I'm just curious, why do we want the city council at our first public meeting anyway? I'm just curious. I think
anytime you allow both sides in a joint hearing and allowing access is a good thing.
Well, they can be here.
Yeah, but
they
can't. No, the process would be then you have to, as long as they post that all a quorum will be present, but they can't discuss anything. They can only be present.
Right.
But so Ms. Wright.
So I just want a point of clarity. I like the idea of the council being here. The quicker we get transparency of what all of us have been working on, I just feel like everybody's moving in the right direction. So fan of that. Question though, because I love what Commissioner Leslie was just talking about, is this is our first time, but we will have subsequent opportunities to have one-on-one dialogue with the citizens. Will we have more of an open house? Or is this one and done? I just want to understand the flow.
So here's what I would say, and I hear you, but I'm also going to disagree, Leslie, because we've had workshop sessions and everyone was able to have input. It wasn't their first opportunity. They've had opportunities. Now, is it more advertised as such, and is that the difference? That's I think, to me, a different issue. But I do think that we have been transparently with videos and opportunities. I think we have done a lot of opportunities for them to have says and have their involvement in the process with the way that we've recorded, the way that we have the viewable online. You can review any of our hearings. So to say that the public doesn't have those opportunities, I slightly disagree with that. All right. Ms. Sutherland. Nope, you're out of order, sir. I will get to you. I will give you that opportunity. You're out of order. I'm sorry, sir.
So, on that same note, our council could have been present too, right? They could have come as citizens.
We have had council members here as citizens.
We have, but have they have had the same equal opportunity? My concern is,
Yes.
if we have our very first meeting with a potentially contentious council, and we're laying out term limits and new expectations, would it be an opportunity for public discourse in front of the public whenever we're trying to get something voted in?
I think that there's always a risk of that. I don't think so. But I think everyone that has had invested in this time has had those opportunities. And also, Ms. Sutherland, I will make a clarity point. I do know that every single council member has been said, hey, come by. No one has been discouraged. Everyone has, at any time someone has brought something up, I said, you're welcome to come. Mr. Day has shown up. And again, anyone who's contacted me through either the email process that we have allowed people to email their concerns, they've had that opportunity to enter in that. So, Leslie?
The point I would make on the public, and I agree, they could have come to all of the meetings, and some did.
Yes.
But now this is the first time they've had the full document done to review, and you get different public interest, you get different, and Mike, a couple of points. So I think it is different now that we're done.
Okay.
Or quote done. The other thing, and I think everyone's kind of echoing, or maybe it's already been said, but my concern with the council being here in an official capacity, sitting on the dais or whatever we call it, is the ability to, if we're going to interact in town hall or back and forth, whatever, council doesn't have, whether they could have or not, they do not have the same investment in this document right now. And so my fear is they would try to answer questions for us when they weren't part of the why.
Okay. Well, I just want to point out that we do have a new visitor in Councilman Day. So, like Beetlejuice,
yeah, right.
You just invoked it. Is there any other? I saw Mr. Reich. You had anything?
Yes. Just for some clarification, are we discussing or talking about having a joint forum with the city council president?
It would be a public hearing, yes.
With the public, and the public then has discussions with us, and the city council is mute.
Well, so we cannot respond back to the public. It would just be the public hearing would.
I thought Mr. Hallis said if we put it on the agenda as a public hearing for discussion, we could discuss back and forth. Discussion with the public.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. Yes, we could do it that way. Mr. Black, typically we don't do that, but I do know. Do you have anything you want to add? I will allow that.
It's a misnomer to say the public has seen it because it's all been on videotape. You need to look at the first at least half. I stopped watching finally because it was just impossible to follow. This is great on the 70 half. But before, when you passed the mic and the meeting got more into it, people would not turn on, they'd be tired, which is understandable. And so you completely totally have no audio.
Okay. So you feel that would give a better opportunity with audio? Okay. All right. Well, I just wanted to clarify. I do want to, again, and what I would say, Mr. Black, is I do appreciate people coming. I do want it, again, but when I do think it is apropos to get a point that you want, and as someone who is viewing, again, a work session is different. And I want to be clear, a work session, what we've done in this process was the process, all right? Everything else was kind of discussing up to that point and allowing people to have that free thought process and not encumbered. Once we got into this hard, it was meant to be designed as such. So I think that's a compliment, but maybe not. But I do appreciate all input. Mr. Brewer.
Yeah, so I have a suggestion.
All right.
So if we went ahead and had a public hearing, we don't necessarily, council can show up, but we don't, what I foresee doing is after we have the public hearing, letting the public digest what's been put out there, make their comments and all that. In that meeting in February with the council, we do a formal presentation to the council. The council can then go back and forth with questions about any of the items that are on there. And then we can take for the next council meeting after that, do the formal presentation of this is the finalized document. Council now votes to put it on the May docket for election.
Now, just a point, I might be out of town that week, the way it's looking.
We can be flexible with the time. I'm just trying to put out a better process because I think there's some worries.
But
about
I'm
having
comfortable
all the council members up front on the very first really public meeting. And I'll add this, I am happy to host a town hall like in March, April, to help with that as we get closer to the election, because, there'll be a period of time where there ain't much happening, and then all of a sudden we're talking about it.
And I think that's correct, too. I think that I think at this point, in all fairness, Mr. Brewer, I agree with what I'm hearing, is I think our decisions to be made is here. Our presentation to the public is a different animal than what we're talking about, because we're not going to come back and keep revisiting what we've done. We've now given that opportunity. We have voted on that. So I think what we're talking about, how we go forward from here, with those presentations and those town halls, and that next step, that comes after the council and everything else. I think that we can do that after the fact, and I think that is still needed. And we can do that in March. We can do that in April. We just can't do it in May. Right. So I don't want you to think that informing the public isn't something we can do. We can absolutely do that. But we really, at this point, need to move forward with our decisions. And I think we are done at that point. So I think the joint public is good. All right, Ms. Hildreth.
And Mr. Hollow will be required to be there to answer any questions.
Oh, yeah.
To me, that sounds out of order. I didn't see that at 7:00.
I didn't acknowledge him anyway, so you're out of order. All right. So, do we all understand what we're expecting at this point? No, I think we're going with the recommendation to do a joint public hearing with that meeting. In January. Public discussion, but it would be through a joint meeting. Okay? Do we have a formal, I guess, it doesn't really matter. I think we're given direction at this point. So that's what we're going to be doing as directional. Do we all understand? Is it clear? Any questions? I want everyone to feel comfortable as we're proceeding. It would be as decided upon by council. It would be decided by council, and then we would have our meetings and everything approved at that time. Yep.
Mr. Chairman, just for clarification, so then January is public discussion. February is council meeting and presentation.
Correct.
March is final council with approval from council. And
Correct.
then April is town hall.
Yes. Well, yeah, March would be town hall.
If the presentation to council occurs during the first meeting in February, which would be the second week, then there should be on the fourth week a second meeting that last week of February where it's presented for them to put on the
and then March would be
calendar.
The town hall.
So then that would be the final council town hall in March. Okay.
Yep.
Correct. Yeah, you don't want to do that in April, because then what would happen then is it would cause a little confusion, because early vote could potentially be right there. So that's why you want March.
All right. Thank you.
The other part of it is we have to mail a copy of this with 30 days.
Yes.
Then 30 days out from the election date. So
Yes.
there's a timeline with that.
But the public town hall doesn't stop that. That would be more the education town hall. So that would just informing of what we have done and what the council has done since then. All right, so Roberta?
In March,
And then John.
in March, about when in March, do we know?
It would probably be in the middle of March or probably the second or third at this point.
Okay, so third week, I'm not in Texas, so,
Okay,
so I may not be here.
okay.
Yeah.
Well, you can always, and what I'm going to say, Mr. Holla, is that public town hall can also be available online.
Okay.
All right? We'll make it available online.
Sure.
See? Easy. Okay. Mr. Powers?
What role, just so I'm clear, what role will the city council have in that first meeting, that first public
In January?
discussion? What will they be doing?
They will be discussing and working with us in that first, they will be able to work with us. It's a joint meeting. It will be a joint session with the public as a discussion.
So are they going to be answering questions about our document?
They can, technically.
I mean, yeah, if it's listed as a discussion, I mean, I feel confident. I guess I can't guarantee everything, but you got two of them in here, and not saying anything about the four that aren't here. But I know these two aren't stupid enough to sit there and answer questions about home rule charters and questions and sections and stuff like this that y'all have been working on for many, many months, and they have no idea about.
I think that's fair.
Very confident in it.
I feel that that's correct too. Now, there's always a margin of error, right? But anything else? It is 8:53. We've done a great job. So, any other questions on 6? I'm going to close section 6. And as I begin to adjourn, I want to say thank you, everyone. I hope you have a happy Thanksgiving. And I will, what is that? Don't look at me like I'm the turkey. If that's what you were going to call me as, well, Russo, you're the turkey in Thanksgiving. No, I will accept a motion to adjourn. Mrs. Sawyer?
I will make a motion to adjourn.
And we have a second by Roberta. All those in favor? Opposed? The ayes have it, and we are now adjourned at 8:54. Thank you all.